Hi Year 8, I'm Ms Symington and I'm a teacher at Van Dyke Upper School. I teach English and I've been at Van Dyke for 8 years I think this year, so I'm really excited to meet so many of you in September, and I'm here today to read the third part this week of The Wall. So we're up to page 181 and we'll start from now. During July the situation became more tense. Liev refuses to switch on the TV news because he says it's all exaggerated and he doesn't buy newspapers. I see headlines though, and hear snippets here and there on the radio. Even if you hid yourself away completely, it wouldn't be possible to miss talk of the crackdown. In Amarias, you can hear it with your own ears, every night, coming over the wall. Sporadic bursts of gunfire, the squeak and rumble of tank tracks, helicopter blades hacking through the air. Sometimes there are other, more mysterious sounds. Glass shattering, shouts, falling masonry, sudden revving of diesel engines, the odd explosion. I know Leela's father will want to visit his olive grove on the first day of August. But as the crackdown goes on, I begin to fear he might not make it. There's talk of a curfew. The checkpoint is likely to be either closed or restricted. He survived the attack in the alleyway, but every time I hear an explosion or a gunshot, I know there's a chance Leela's family have been harmed. When the day comes, I'm just as excited and fearful as the month before, even though there's nothing new to show him other than two fresh leaves unfurling on my baby tree. I've kept everything at the Grove in immaculate condition, sneaking away from home as often as I can, more for the simple pleasures of being at the Grove than because there's any particular work that needs to be done. Any weed that dares show itself above ground is immediately and ruthlessly eliminated. My bedroom is messier than ever, but those terraces are as tidy as an operating theatre. After watering the trees and checking the ground for new weeds, I sit and wait, my head spinning, the same questions round and round like a washing machine. Will he come? Will Layla come? Would we be able to take another walk together? Would we go to the same place? Might I get another chance to kiss her? But just like last time, I wait and no one comes, and my nervous anticipation gives way to boredom. After an hour or two, I lie on the ground and watch a drone high above, beetling to and fro across the sky like an industrious insect. My eyelids began to feel heavy, drooping in long, slow blinks. I try to fight off the sleepiness, but eventually cave in and find myself enveloped by a dream both comforting and sinister. My father is in cages at the checkpoint, waiting his turn near the front of the long line of people. He looks bored but resolute as he inches forward among the crush of bodies. He's wearing his army uniform. It is drenched in blood, but when his turn comes to go through the turnstile, he's waved on without a second glance. He walks to a window of thick bulletproof glass and hands his papers through a slot. On the other side, in full uniform, is my mother. She skims her eyes over the pass, glances at Dad, and expressionlessly nods him through as if she doesn't recognise him. Then he's on the road to the olive grove, squinting into the hot white sunlight. The blood seems to be coming from a chest wound, and it has run down the left side of his body. One leg is clean, the other is soaked through, entirely red. His left foot squelches as he walks. Behind him is a trail of red, left-only footprints, widely spaced, snaking back down the road towards the checkpoint. He seems to be unbothered by his wound and walks purposely along the route to an olive grove. At the razor wire, he turns off the road, up the path, but instead of going round the obstruction, he lifts his bloody leg high into the air, plants a foot on top of the wire and steps casually through, unharmed. At a steady pace, he climbs up the grove where he finds me sleeping under a tree. Without speaking, he shakes me gently by the shoulder, the more roughly as my body wobbles and flops, not responding. His expression darkens and his shakes grow more forceful, turning into angry, painful yanks at my arm. And now I seem to be begging him to stop, yelling at the top of my voice, but he won't. Then my eyes open, the sun's glare dazzling me with blinding force. I can see or half see, but the dream doesn't seem to stop. Someone really is tugging my arm. Arrows of genuine pain are shooting up through my shoulder. Against the bright sky, it takes a moment to recognise the face that's looming over me. It's Liev. "What are you doing here?" he snaps. Get up! Without waiting for me to do it myself, he pulls me onto my feet, wrenching my shoulder with an audible crack. He holds his face so close to mine that I can feel the warmth of his breath on my lips. His features are glistening with greasy sweat and twisted into a hot red knot of rage. "Why are you here? Is this where you've been coming?" he shouts, barely waiting for an answer, just piling straight on, taking my silence as an assent. All these weeks, all the secrecy and slipping away and lying to your mother so you can come here and sleep under a tree like a peasant. I look down at the soil and say nothing. My feet are bare, toe to toe with Liev's black leather shoes, which are freshly polished but coated with dust and sand. Answer me! I don't move and don't speak. Where are your shoes? Who do you think you are? I look up into his eyes, which I've always thought were grey, but out here in the sunlight they seem green. His pupils are tiny dots, a full stop in the middle of each eyeball. For a moment I think I might, in this place, find the strength to defy him, but he stares me down with a gaze of such vibrant, blazing intensity that I sense he might lose control. At moments like this, one-to-one away from my mother, I can see how much he hates me. If he unleashed himself onto me out here, if he allowed himself to hurt me, I have no idea how far he would go and whether he'd be able to stop. Where are your shoes? I point at the entrance to the grove. Neatly, side by side in the path are my trainers. Put them on and come home at once. This nonsense is over. I walk through the gateway to fetch my shoes, and as I bend to pick them up, a flicker of movement at the corner of my eye makes me glance down the path. Layla and her father are approaching, moments away from entering Liev's field of vision. I freeze, frantically scanning my brain for a way to turn them back without alerting my stepfather. Layla smiles and waves at me. I give her a small shake of the head. She either doesn't see or doesn't understand and carries on walking towards me. I shake my head again more clearly. She halts, stopping her father with a gentle tug, but it's too late. What are you doing? Barks Liev. I turn and attempt a casual shrug. Putting my shoes on, I say, squatting down to the block of the narrow exit from the grove. Liev rushes towards me, barges me aside and runs down the path towards Layla and her father, who are now walking briskly away. Liev darts ahead and stops with a hand on his shoulder. Who are you? He snaps. Why are you here? Leela's father doesn't answer. He looks infinitely weary. After a long silence, he speaks in his quiet, heavily accented voice. This is my olive grove. Oh, it's yours, is it? Said Liev with a heavy sarcasm. It is. It's mine, and it was my father's and his father's. We'll see about that, says Liev. Where's your pass? I've been through the checkpoint. I've already shown my pass. Are you refusing to show me your pass? I have shown my pass. This is the last time I will ask you, says Liev, his right hand moving to his belt, where it undoes the popper on the leather holster which holds the gun he wears when he ventures out Amarias. Layla's father reaches into the pocket and hands over his pass. Liev holds it contemptuously between thumb and forefinger as if to minimise the transmission of germs and examines the text. Leela's father snatches a quick glance in my direction. I give an apologetic shrug, which meets no response. Leela just looks at the ground as if she's trying to make herself invisible. Her face seems terrified and calm at the same time. You're responsible for these fields, says Liev. Yes, says Leela's father. Does anyone help you? There's a momentary pause before he answers. No. No one? You come once a month and you look after the grove on your own? Yes. Does my son help you? Leela's father blinks. I do not employ anyone else to work here. Does he help you? How can I know what happens when I'm not here? You must ask him. Liev swivels towards me. Do you work for this man? No. Do you help him? No. Why are you here? Why have you been coming here? To sleep? I just came here. I found it and I liked it. Sometimes I put water on the trees. He hasn't asked me to do anything. You know that if he's employing illegal labour here, this land can be confiscated. I've seen you coming home with soil under your fingernails. I knew you were up to something. Layla's father speaks up, his voice thin and high. I haven't employed him. I've never paid him anything. I didn't even know he was here. So what's this? Says Liev, brandishing a piece of paper out of his back pocket. I recognise it instantly. It's the map Leela's father drew for me, which I'd stashed at the bottom of my wardrobe. I'll tell you what it is, continues Liev. It's Exhibit A, and that's what it is. And the next time you're going to see it is in court. Leave him alone, I shout, my voice filled as much with anger towards Liev as towards myself for not having thrown away the evidence. He hasn't done anything. Liev grabs me by the t-shirt and pushes me hard against the wall of the grove. A sharp stone jabs into my spine and my neck snaps backwards. However angry you get with Liev, he can always outdo you. Don't you dare tell me what I can and can't do, he says, his voice icy and crisp. You don't understand anything. You have no idea what you've done. I haven't done anything. I've just watered some trees. Those aren't trees, Joshua. Nothing here is only a tree. Just because you feel cosy and secure in the home I've made for you doesn't mean that we're safe. This is a war zone. We're surrounded by people who hate us and want to take our land and kill us. And every tree and rock that belongs to our enemies is a potential launch pad for a missile that can kill you or me or your mother. Or take out an entire school with every single child still in it. Hundreds of people are plotting to get us right now, this minute, every minute. Do you understand me? With this, he lets go of me and takes a step back. His cheeks are flushed and his breath is short. 2 off-white curls of foamy spittle have settled in the corners of my mouth. His mouth. I pull the fabric of my t-shirt into shape, push my shoulders back and stand up straight. For once, I'm not going to let him bully me into silence. Layla and her father are watching. I have to be strong. It's not a launch pad, I say. It's an olive grove. If that's all you can see here, then you're blind, he says. You see hills and fields? Fine, you're very lucky, because what I see all around us is a battlefield, and anything that isn't ours is an enemy hotspot. If that's what you think, then why did you bring us here? To do the Lord's work. He gave this land to our people, and no one is willing to fight for it except us. We've been in exile for 2,000 years, and only now we're fighting back, taking what is ours. If you can't take pride in that, you're a weakling and a traitor. His eyes are sparkling now, radiant with passion. Do you still not understand what this is for? How long we've waited? Can you not even see that at long last, after all this time, we're winning? Bit by bit, we're winning. And if it takes another 1,000 years and we have to fight inch by inch, so be it. You can't fight for 1,000 years. You'll be dead. The next generation will carry on the fight. I'm the next generation, and I think you're crazy. His lips pucker into a thin crease as he takes 3 long, slow breaths through his nose. The skin around my eyes tense and a minuscule flinch that I try to suppress. You think you can disrespect me like this? You think you can carry on saying these things? I shrug. You think you're smarter than me? He barks, jabbing me hard in the chest with his index finger. I shrug again, lowering my face to the ground. A shuffling sound emanates from below as Layla's father begins to edge away. Liev swivels and grabs his arm. What is it you want here? He says. What are you playing at? Layla's father holds his gaze. What is it you want? I want you to leave my son alone. I'm not your son, I say. Liev spins on his heel and raises a hand above his head. In the fraction of a second before his fist comes down to strike me, I see Layla's father's arm stretched forwards to block the blow, then withdraw again as he changes his mind. Liev's knuckles strike me between the corner of my mouth and my jaw, knocking me off my balance. I stagger and fall to my knees in the dust. When I dizzily raise my head, Liev isn't even facing in my direction, but is squaring up to Layla's father. This path is closed. You've seen the razor wire. These are my fields. This access route is deauthorised by military order. You know that as well as I do. I own these fields. If I ever see you anywhere near this path or my son again, I'll have you arrested. I scramble back to my feet. I'm not your son, I say. Liev turns to face me. His eyes are wild and red. Are you trying to provoke me? Do you have any idea what I've done for you and your mother? Do you know where you'd be right now if it wasn't for me? Not sure. Not here, that's for sure. Are you mocking me? How dare you mock me after everything I've done for you? You've done nothing for me, I shout. I hate it here. I wish you'd left us alone. You have no idea how much damage you've done. I haven't done anything wrong. You were sent to hurt me. You don't even know what destructive force you are. Everything you touch. I haven't done anything. Why do you think you don't have any brothers or sisters? What's that got to do with anything? If you weren't so selfish, you'd know. What are you talking about? I'm not saying any more. What do you mean? You are a very confused young man. One day you'll realise. Realise what? What you've done to me and your mother. The damage you've caused. Where do you think you are going? Liev pushes me aside and barges towards Layla's father, who has quietly walked on around us into his olive grove. I have work to do. I told you to leave, shouts Liev. I don't think you did. Well, I'm telling you now. Under whose authority? Mine. I have a pass. I'm allowed here once a month. I'm telling you to leave. I'm afraid I can't do that. You can't? I have work to do. With that, Layla's father turns away and walks into the olive grove. He takes a hoe from under his tarpaulin and begins to work the soil. Liev follows him into the grove, pulling the gun from his holster. He raises it fast and points it at Layla's father. You love to try our patience, don't you? You just can't resist pushing everything to the brink. Layla's father ignores him. Okay, big guy, Liev says. This is your last warning. I'm telling you to leave now. You can hear the click as he undoes the safety catch on his gun. Layla's father doesn't even look up. His work doesn't quicken or slow down. With his back to Liev, he carries on turning the soil. Layla still hasn't moved from the spot on the path. There really is only one language you people understand, isn't there? Says Liev. His hand is trembling now, the gun jiggling at the end of his stiff, tense arm. I know I ought to intervene, but my body refuses to move. The air seems to thicken as Layla's father continues to turn the soil, with Liev's pistol trained at his head. The gun tracks his movements as he works slowly back and forth. High above, the drone is still buzzing away. I sense that an invisible thread between the two men is being pulled tighter and tighter. Any second it will snap. With a swift moment, Liam's arm swivels towards the nearest tree. The report from the gun hammers through my skull as Liam's bullet tears a fist-sized lump out of the trunk, exposing ragged splinters of pale wood. The sight unlocks my paralysed muscles. I leap at Liam, but he pivots out of the way, brushing me aside before spinning back into position and burying another bullet into the tree. I spring forwards again, this time not at Liam but towards the tree. I flatten myself against the wounded trunk and stare down the barrel of Liam's gun. His hand is steady now, his nerves seemingly calmed by having fired off his first 2 shots. "Get out of the way, Joshua," he says. "This is none of your business." I'm not moving. Liev lets out a forced chuckle. I think you are. Mum knows you followed me here, doesn't she?" "Yes, so you can't touch me. If I get hurt..." Liev chews his tongue for a second, thrown momentarily off balance. Then the smile returns to his face. "There's plenty more trees, Joshua. You're going to stand in front of all of them, Mr. Hippie Tree Lover. Which tree are you going to hug now?" He turns and fires another bullet into the tree next to me. If he missed the trunk, the bullet would have hit Leela's father, who was staring at us, motionless, his hoe gripped loosely in his hands. He flinches as the trunk in front of him shatters in splints, but he doesn't move away. At that moment, a new anger seemed to lift me in the way an air lifts an aeroplane. I feel strong and clear-headed as I step towards Liev along the sightline of his gun and shout at him with indignant fury that blows every last drop of fear out of my body. "One more bullet," I say. "You shoot one more bullet and I'm not going home. Just watch me. I'm going out there, up into the hills. Right now, if I hear one gunshot, I'm not coming down, and whatever happens to me, you'll have to explain it to Mum. You stay up there, the jackals will get you. You couldn't last one night." "I know," I say. I hold his gaze, not flinching from the rage that seems to be buzzing through his body like an electric current. For once, I square up to him and hold my ground. Before my courage fails me, before Liev can see I have the slightest doubt in my mind, I turn and run, not even stopping to collect my shoes out of the grove and upwards. I glance quickly at Layla as I flee. Her eyes are glassy with tears, staring towards me expressionlessly, as if she doesn't know who I am or what I'm doing. I take Layla's path, pushing myself through the thicket of branches, desperate to get up and away before Liev chases me. Thorns tear at my skin and rocks jab into the soles of my feet, but I don't let myself pause. Running with all my might over the loose stony soil, I force myself upwards, heading for Layla's secret plateau. I can't see Liev behind me, but that doesn't mean it isn't following. So when I see a slope rising above from Layla's path with a good supply of jagged rocks, I decide to take it. It looks climbable, but steep enough to put off Liev. I speedily clamber up, my mind filled with nothing more than footholds and handholds as step by step I haul myself skywards. I feel no pain or tiredness, only a glowing hum of concentration as I work the task of getting up to the rock face. It's more of a surprise than a relief when suddenly there's no further to climb. I find myself on a plateau of brown rock the size of a couple of parking spaces. So smooth and clear it seems to have been swept. I must have bypassed Layla's overhang and reached the peak. A powerful wind from the coast buffets and nudges my body, flapping the cuffs of my trouser legs. I can see the whole of the town and Layla's town. From up here it looks like a single place, surrounded by countryside but divided by a wall. One half neat, new, spacious, the other cramped, higgledy-piggledy and old. It's strange to see Amaris from what the inside felt like, the whole universe. Shrunk to this, just a blotch of red-roofed buildings surrounded by all sides by land that goes on, fading to the heat haze. And like a thick grey scar alongside the town, the wall. Up close, it's the height that surprises you from here. It's the length I'd never seen so much of it all at once, all taken in its superhuman scale and ambition, like a piece of concrete geology. Layla's grove, not far below, is out of sight from the hilltop. Liev can't see me and I can't see him. For a long time I hear his voice, piping weakly upwards up the summit, calling my name, going through various cycles of tone, angry, pleading, threatening. Really angry, eye-poppingly livid. He tries them all. I pick up a handful of stones and throw them in the general direction of his voice. I know they won't hit him, but it's satisfying to try, to be, for once, the one of the attack. As my heart rate settles, the sting and throb from my gashed flesh begins to come through, quietly at first, then louder and louder. Thorns have ripped several cuts into my calves and thighs, slashing through my trousers and flesh. I sit and look at the soles of my feet. They are tougher now than they used to be, but are blotched with muddy patches of fresh blood. The sink is too caked with dust to see exactly what's happened. Then, since there's nothing I can do, I decide not to investigate further. Up here, pain doesn't feel quite so painful. After a while, the calling stops and the hillside goes quiet. I hear no more gunfire. Tentatively, I shuffle to the ledge of the plateau and let my legs dangle out. A stone skitters downwards, sending up puffs of dust as it dances against the rock face before coming to the rest silently far below. Looking out at the wall, I think of my mother, of the scar across her front, and Liam's accusation rings in my ears. Since she married him, I've seen no more of her body than her face, arms and feet. Not for several years have I seen the scar. A memory comes back to me, one of the few I still have from where I was small, living in the house by the sea. It's of me and her and my father, all crammed into the bath together, a jumble of limbs jostling for space, all of us laughing and squealing. The bath started as Dad's, but I asked to get in with him. Then Mum said it looked like fun as she climbed in too, raising the water level almost to the brim. I remember asking about the scar and her soft voice telling me that I got stuck during my birth, so the doctors cut through her tummy to get me out. She let me feel. I ran my index finger gently along the line of it from end to the other. It was raised up a little from the rest of her skin in a little ridge, strangely hard under my fingertip, almost like plastic. She said I could touch it only once because it felt strange for her, numb and ticklish at the same time. The whole thing is clear in my head, including how the atmosphere changed after I mentioned the scar. In the silence after I touched it, I asked if it hurt where they cut her. She put a finger under my chin and looked me straight in the eye. She told me she was given medicine that got rid of all the pain, so the only feeling she had was pure happiness. She said it was as if she was trying to persuade me of something. She didn't expect me to believe. Dad was weirdly quiet and still. Only very gradually, year by year, did it become apparent that unlike my friends, I was never going to have a sibling. By the time I realised, I also understood that it was forbidden to ask why. There were secret hospital consultations, panic extended disappearances to the bathroom, and bedridden teary days with no convincing explanation. I know things happened, and they went all wrong, and there was never a baby. It hadn't occurred to me that just by being born I could have harmed my mother, but a knife had slit her open to get me out. Someone had gouged into her and pushed a hand through her flesh to pull me into the world. While I was taking my first breath, the doctors must have been crouched over her, stopping the bleeding, sewing her up, leaving a scar that never went away. Was this the damage I caused on the first day of my life, before my eyes had even opened? Could something have gone wrong with the operation? Did this cut, which saved me, wipe out my brothers and sisters? She never blamed me. She put a finger under my chin and looked me in the eyes and told me in her most serious voice that the only thing she felt was happiness. I could see how much she wanted to convince me, but perhaps the real effort was to convince herself.